Um, 2011, I was I lost a lot more weight, and I was down to 8 stone, but I was very healthy. I was doing a lot of yoga, and I was experiencing a lot of spiritual things, and I started to just go walking for hours and hours through the city as well, but also through the countryside and things, and I would be swimming then, and I then started to just whenever I was by the sea, I'd just take all my clothes off, go straight into the sea and start swimming, regardless of whatever, just I thought I had to go swim. And it was that year 2011. I also there was someone that saw me when I was walking near the university, and she thought that there was some sort of she was Christian, but very esoteric Christian, and she thought there was something going on, with me that was on a spiritual level, and I walked with her the evening that she met me, because I had just wandered into one of the university buildings, because I was still a student, you see, so but I was just, after walking for a long time, I wandered in, and she was studying music there, and she said, okay, come and sit down, I'm going to get you some food, because I hadn't eaten for hours, for many hours, and she said she said some things about finding like remembering to say grace before I ate the food, and to thank God, and all this sort of thing. And I was wandering around in shoes that were completely broken, completely. There were holes in my shoes, and eventually she said that I should go back to where I was staying, and she walked with me there, and then I remember going through the window instead of the door to my room where I was staying, and it was quite soon after that. So I can't remember. It must have been 2011. It just happened that in the university, around the universities around the world, there was the Occupy movement, and I went to be a part of that, and I stayed basically in the occupation of one of the university buildings. But I had just wandered in there, and I just sort of stayed there. I mean, people knew me because I'd made friends that year, but people were starting to worry about me because I was starting to walk around with no shoes and no socks, walking around barefoot, and I would be just again in another world, and then it was sometime after that my mum decided that she would section me, to tell my psychiatrist that, because I went to meet my psychiatrist as a regular thing. So when I went to meet him, he said, okay, your mum has basically sectioned you, so you have to stay in the ward in Cornhill in Aberdeen. And so that was the beginning of spending 3 months in the ward. And the funny thing was that Christian girl who had seen me near the university and given me food and told me about Jesus and things, she when I went into the ward, she was there because someone had sectioned her, you know. And so I ended up spending 3 months in the ward with her and many other people in Brodie Ward, it was, in Cornhill. And it was a very interesting time. I mean, I refused point blank to take any medication, and I wasn't allowed out of the ward, but there was a courtyard outside, and I would just go around again and again in circles around the courtyard. I felt like I wanted to I don't know, I wanted to be free to go. So I even ran away from the ward at one point, and ended up walking into town and sat down with a homeless man and had a cigarette with him, and then ended up going to the Quaker meeting house, it was, where they have Buddhist meditations there.
Crown Street.
Yes, on Crown Street. And I was wanting to get out of Aberdeen, but I went to a meditation there, and then the police came into the meditation and said they said my name if I was there, and they said, you know, that Cornhill has said that you have to come back because you have to stay in Cornhill. You haven't been discharged. So they took me back, and then I was there. Overall, I was there in Cornhill that time for 3 months.
How was it like to be in it?
I mean, in some ways, you got food 3 times a day. You had a bed. But I felt very resistant to being there at the time, which is why I tried to run away as well. And I remember being able to speak with some of the nurses about things. I mean, other nurses there were just very not open to talking or you know, that sort of thing. But my mum came to see me like very often in the hospital, and even came and played the guitar, because she's a musician. She played guitar and sang some songs for me and things, and she was there for me during this whole period, you know. I mean, obviously she came to Aberdeen because she wanted to make sure I'd be okay, and then when I wasn't, she was there for me during that whole period. So anyway, I refused to take any medication, and then eventually they actually like pinned me down and gave me an injection. And then a little bit after that, my psychiatrist came into the ward and said, you know, like, and now that you are taking, it was flufenazine, I think it's called, taking this injection, you should take it once a month, once every 3 weeks, and then you can leave the ward. So to start with, I just sort of surrendered to the idea that I have to take it. So I left, and I stayed where I had been staying before, but for many months I didn't leave the house. You know, I just was when you're sort of very sleepy all the time, and very I would just watch some comedy shows and things on the couch for most of the day, and just stay at home basically. But then gradually I got used to, I think, I got used to taking the injection, and then I started to get out more and things like that, and I ended up going back again because obviously when I went to Cornhill I had to suspend my studies, so I went back again and started up again, and I gradually became more sociable and just more well generally, I suppose, more able to be in society after having been in Cornhill, and but my mum stayed for at least 6 months after I'd been discharged, and then she ended up when she felt I was well enough to be by myself, she organised with my dad to buy accommodation for me to live by myself, and yes, I then got the flat in King Street where I live, and I suppose I just got used to. The diagnosis that I got was for having schizophrenia, so I got used to dealing with that, I suppose, and then yes, that was 2011, Christmas 2011, and then 2012, when I got the house on King Street, and yes, I continued. I managed over those next few years to maintain a sort of a good, a well state of mind, I suppose. I mean, I wasn't doing anything that was sort of endangering myself or, anything like that. And so I completed a degree eventually after all those years in Aberdeen University, and then I went travelling in India for 3 months. Well, I didn't go by myself. My friend was out there, who's Indian. I lived with him. So all this time, after leaving Cornhill, I decided, if I was going back into anything spiritual, I would go very slowly, and not push myself too much with any spiritual practice, as I've had all the history of breakdowns and institutionalization and everything, so yes, but I mean, going to India, that was a very interesting experience, going to see many of the Hindu temples, and even some mosques as well, and we even went near the Himalayas to some caves where some yogis where a yogi invited us to stay with him in his cave and things like that, and it was very enriching leaving to live there for 3 months, and it was good, and my parents felt that I was well enough to do that, obviously, so yes, and then since then, 2013 that was, I just sort of gradually just built myself a sort of people I could turn to, or I can turn to, and support, if you like, call it a support network of friends and close people around me, and I think I feel very much that I don't have an idea of ever being perfectly sane or something, because but I feel like it just to be able to deal with everything that crops up in life, and maintain a balance, and of course, I still go they changed it from every 3 weeks to every once a month. As that was under my psychiatrist's idea to do that. So I now just go every week to Cornhill to get an injection, and so I don't have to worry about taking pills every day or something like that. I just go every week, and Ajahn is taking me on Wednesday as well. And so yeah, it's now 6 years since I was I had a breakdown, and I feel I don't feel like I'm about to have another one, so that's good. And but going back to like where we are now, I've been coming to the centre for the past year, every Tuesday for doing meditation, and I found it very helpful. And I also invited a lot of my friends to come along as well. And yes, I feel, that I enjoy meditating, and I really enjoy meditating, and in the past I've done it very intensively, but for me it's important to go very slowly into the meditation practice and into the spiritual life, and I'm a novice monk now here at the centre for I've been here a week, and I've got another week to go, and then I'm going back to lay life. And the reason why we're doing this interview was just because I was saying to Ajahn how I feel it's important that because here at the centre it's separated from the rest of the world, not the rest of the world, but the rest of society and everything that goes on. And I just feel that as we go into this next week, that it's important to be able to make the transition back into lay life. Yeah. And when I came here, my dad said to me that he wishes my physical and mental well-being and happiness. And I know that many people experience mental illness, so I wish everyone that was watching this that their physical and mental well-being and happiness also.
So. How do you feel living in the centre?
I feel good. It's not completely isolated because there's always people, especially the Thai community, come to offer food, and just because you're a monk, it doesn't mean you can't have a chat with someone too, and it's good. It's good.
Do you think it's helping you?
Yes, it's helping me acknowledge my feelings, my emotions, my thoughts, and it giving me some sort of I feel that the purpose is just so that I can live in society in a way that I'm benefiting those around me, or just being a positive member of society, So that's my wish in doing this practice, is that that going back into lay life and to society, that I will do things and be a good member of society and the community, and yes, everything like that.
What would you say, or a message to the people, those who are watching?
I'd say to take care of yourselves and take care of your own well-being and your own happiness, and also know that everyone wants to be happy, and everyone goes through some amount of suffering and turmoil, and just to remember that whenever you're speaking with someone, and knowing that everyone has gone through so much, everyone we meet.
Okay. Thank you. Okay.
Continue.
Mm-hmm.
I was living in a house with seven students, and I was living in my room. I had a room with the bed on. No, I even got rid of the bed. I made just a yoga mat on the floor, and I did had the Buddha on the table, and even made offerings of fruits and things. And but I was always in a very sort of devotional state, I suppose. And then during that year, I feel I started to have some difficulty in speaking to people, even just communication, I suppose, because I was so, I suppose, attached to doing meditation and that sort of thing, and I ended up, it's very dramatic, because I ran away from Aberdeen and went to the train station. I booked a train to Bradford, because something told me I had to go where my mum comes from. I was born in Bradford. I had to go there. Something told me I had to. So I just booked a train, and I didn't even say goodbye to any of my housemates. I just left, and I left out of the window, and I had arrived at the train station, but I realised that the train went a day later than where I was. So I had a huge bag, which I was dragging along with me, and then I just started walking around the beach, and decided I would just find somewhere to lie down before the next day, and it was freezing cold night, so I lied down in the like a shelter, just like a shelter for sitting along the beach in Aberdeen, and a few hours I lied down there, and then I started walking again. It was night time, and I walked and started walking really close to the sea, and then I got like covered in water from the sea, and then there was a pub nearby, and I went into the pub and with soaking wet clothes, and the landlord said, we'll give you some food, and you can stay in this very kind of them. They said you can stay in this rooms we have adjacent to the pub. So I stayed there for a few hours more, and someone gave me some clean socks. And then on that day, I went to get the train. I arrived in Bradford in the snow. It was winter, and I was walking around Bradford in sandals in the snow, and then my feet, to protect my feet, I got 2 sets of underwear and wrapped them around my feet, and walked around with them on my feet, and then the sandals, and I was just trailing around, walking around near the train station. Then this Asian business where they smoke the like the, I can't remember what it's called, the pipe.
Hookah.
Oh yes, it was like a cafe for that, and they saw me just wandering around in the snow, and they said, "Oh, come in and we'll give you some tea." And so I got the tea, and they said, what are you doing? And I said, I've left Aberdeen. I was going to go to a monastery called the Forest Hermitage in Warwickshire, but I'm in Bradford, and I thought I would sleep in the train station, and they said, you can't do that. You can't sleep in this train station. You won't be able to. So they said, if you have anyone you can contact, and then I had my cousin's number, and my cousin, they rang my cousin, and then she was said, well, she was sort of she's the same age as me, and I was a lot younger then. But she said her mum, who lived nearby Bradford, would I should go and stay at her house. So yes, I went. I think the people in the Asian business got me a taxi to meet my aunt, and she just invited me in. Just she said I could stay with her, and then I only stayed. I actually ate me dinner, and I slept that night, and then it was very strange. I was in a very strange state of mind. I started speaking in a Yorkshire accent, even though I don't usually, and I was just wandering around this village near Bradford, and then I decided I had to go to the train station in Bradford, so I left, and I left a note and a scarf. And the scarf, it was like a scarf that I had when I was in Aberdeen. I was using as the bottom for the Buddha image, the Buddha statue in the room that I had. So I left that scarf with my aunt. I didn't speak to her to say goodbye. I just left a note and went to the train station. And then finally, I was in the train station in just some sort of cafeteria, and I rang the Forest Hermitage. And because I'd been there a few years before, just for a few days, and I said, would I be able to stay? Go into Warwick and stay. And Tamanapo, Lumpur Kevadamo's student, answered, and he said, yes, you're welcome to stay. So I went there, and I arrived there. I think I remember I was very sort of rugged with matted hair and things like that, but so I think the first thing I did was go and have a wash and things, and then yes, they said you can stay here and just help in the monastery, and it was very strict in the Forest Hermitage. So I would wake up 5, open the gates, go to clean the toilets, all before we started chanting, and then the chanting, and then sweeping, and then cutting down some branches that needed cutting in the grounds, and hoovering all the places after the morning chanting and meditation, and then but not eating anything until we served the monks at 11, and then we had half an hour to eat, and then they said we should be following 10 precepts, so we had half an hour to eat, and then we couldn't eat anything after that for another 24 hours. But I was still, I had come there in a very sort of not very well state, but I wanted to take all this discipline on board. But by the end of well, also I was living outside in a hut which they call kuti, like they have in Thailand, with a walking path. So I would just be in the hut when I was sleeping, and then doing walking meditation along the path every day, and then but by the end of the 3 months, I just was just so overstrained, really, and I went to, well, I wrote a note for the monks, which is what I did every time I during this period of my life. I just kept on writing notes and then vanishing. But I wrote a note for the monks and said, I want to go back to Burma, where I was a monk before or something, but I don't want to stay here anymore. So I put all my belongings in a cardboard box, put them on my head, and walked through the fields around the back and onto the main street, walking towards the nearest town. No idea what I would do, how I would get to Burma, but I just thought I somehow managed to get there, just somehow. And then the I can't remember his name, but the Lumpur chef, the person living there who did the cooking, because people can't always offer food at Buddhist monasteries, and not every day anyway. So the person doing the cooking, the general cooking, drove up behind me and said, "Please, just don't just go with all your belongings in a box on your head. You should come back, and we can just have a cup of tea. It's all going to be okay, you know." And then Lumpur then realized that, well, I mean, he decided to call my dad, or my parents, my mum and my dad, and then yes, my dad came the following day. It was actually, I don't know how he managed to get from the Isle of Man, where he lives, so quickly, but he came the following day, and yes, he I remember him paying respects to Lumpur, and then we driving back to the Isle of Man, and my dad then at that point, when we were travelling back, he basically, yes, I was still in the habit of eating everything in one go, and then not eating, and then fasting till the next day. And he said, you know, he was concerned, and he said he should seek for me some professional help, you know, with a psychiatrist. And so it was a few, maybe a month or so, I was back home with my parents, and then I was, my dad took me to the psychiatrist, and it was a very, very sort of looking back, it's hard even to remember exactly what it was like, because I was just as if I was in a different world or something, you know. And the psychiatrist said that I should take medication, and I said no, I'm not going to. But I said I would agree to go to as a day patient into the ward to speak with the psychiatrist. And
that was in Isle of Man.
Isle of Man, and it was. I ended up. They gave me some medication. I don't know how, when I wasn't consenting to take it, but I ended up having some anyway, and it was risperidone, I think it was, and then my body had a reaction to the medication that was like that happens in a small case of people that have risperidone, and then they said, okay, you got to stay in the ward, you know. So I spent 3 months in the ward, and then finally they found that they thought, well, my psychiatrist thought that it was best for me to take Prozac in the morning and olanzapine at night, and so that's what I was prescribed, and then I was, you know, eventually I was just like, okay, I will, and I was taking that, and then I was discharged because they felt I was able to go back into society, and I was taking then Prozac and olanzapine, and I lived at my parents for maybe a few months it was, and then my father, because I'd run away in the middle of my studies from Aberdeen, and I managed to suspend them. So my father said, "What it would be good for you to go and finish, you know." So that I went back, and my mum decided she would come
Come to here.
come with me to Aberdeen. So I was 2010. I came back to Aberdeen, and I was just back at university, and but every day I was taking one tablet Prozac in the morning and one tablet olanzapine at night, and then just at some point, I think after maybe it was 6 months to a year, we'd been in Aberdeen, and I made many friends, and it was all I was doing quite well, really, but then I just suddenly decided that I didn't like this taking these tablets, so I just stopped taking them, and then but I was seeing a psychiatrist every couple of months there, and then I didn't take the medicines, so then I started to because olanzapine you gain quite a lot of weight, and then all the weight came off when I stopped taking the medicines, and I felt very sort of like, I suppose, like I was doing a lot of, I went to start doing yoga, and I felt very sort of like spirit. I felt like those spiritual things